we're off next week. End of the week, we'll be halfway through the month, man. All right, ordinance number, no, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Harrison.
Here.
Santana. Harsh.
Here.
House Jones.
Here.
Jones. McCormack.
Present.
Spencer. Present. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to start with ordinance number 339-2024 by Councilmember House Jones, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry or its designee to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the purchase of equipment, the lease or acquisition of warehouse space, and the construction of pilot houses related to the development and implementation of an affordable housing program for low-income or homeless people using 3D printing technology. Who do we have here? Director McNair. I see Mr. Searing here. Come on up. And whoever else from your team that you would like to bring up, sir.
This is just me, sir.
Just you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, sounds good. All right, Director, our clerk is going to grab, she's going to fix the clicker for us really quick. So by the time you can make some opening remarks yourself, introduce your guests, and she should be back by then.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I
Yes.
just wanted to say briefly, and I will let LMM go through their proposal here. I was unaware of this up until earlier this morning. Again, I will say that I actually have looked at 3D printing quite a bit over the years. We have had conversations with LMM at the cluster level. Not sure how this ended up getting routed through the Department of Economic Development. Not sure where the dollars come from for this, and if they're intended to be through the Department of Economic Development, through budget, through our department's costs, or what the source is. Again, broadly speaking, I have spent a lot of time working in a place like Ohio City, living in a place like Buckeye, trying to understand how we can do housing more affordably in the city of Cleveland. There are a lot of different options out there. 3D printing is one of them that I think is very intriguing. It's been done well in some places in the world. It's something that, again, we looked at a lot as Ohio City Incorporated as a way to potentially do that. But I am unaware of kind of how we got to this point today. But thought it was important to be here. And I did reach out to Councilwoman House Jones this morning when I saw this.
Okay, good. Well, we're glad you're here.
Yes.
You're going to be the department that's going to do the contract
Yes.
with Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries, okay? This is a priority of Councilwoman House, which is why we're here today.
Yeah.
And she spoke with me about it, and we wanted to get it teed up, and she is absolutely ready to support this piece. So we're going to start there. Thank you, Director.
Yes.
Always, sir. All right, clerk is right on time. All right, we'll pivot to your guests.
Mr.
Would you
Chair,
like to
can I
introduce yourself?
give
Yes.
context?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So to give the context, how do we get to this point? So as I entered council, there were just conversations. I was immediately the light on the unhoused population, and specifically how Cuyahoga County is literally the place, not only for Cleveland, not only for Cuyahoga County, but really for the state and beyond. There's nowhere else where, people are finding any type of assistance when they are dealing with being unhoused. Everyone is coming here, not any other place in Ohio. And as the person who then is usually put in the place to be in the front line where everyone else is talking about it as being a problem, I'm a person that's come into a place where it feels like we have to actually put action forward to really get people from a place of homelessness to housed. We do not have time to theorize it because it is only going to get worse the longer that we delay. And so as we had conversations, as I've been having conversations with both LMM, who maintains the men's shelter, as well as the YWCA, who manages our women's shelter, both which are located in Ward 7. we have been brainstorming ideas, and when you get the things like on Amazon, you can get a house for $30,000. I'm like, I don't know if this is true, but let's go for it. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like our democracy has to be a place where we are actually putting things in action. The money, people talk about, where is this money coming from? The $2 million that was initially approved by council back in 2021, that was for neon. It has been made clear that that is just not in a direction where the administration will be willing to support. And so for the $2 million that have been allocated for a Ward 7 community, is really trying to figure out how do we reallocate them for pressing needs that we see, not just to appease, but actually to solve problems. And so when LLM had initially approached me 2 years ago, they said, I think we could have a potential opportunity to not only just be the consumer, but potentially be put into position to actually develop homes using and having an allocation to purchase a 3D printing machine. And so, that's where the money is coming from, the reallocation of resources from the neon dollars. And like I said, 2 years ago, we had talked about it was $1 million to buy the machine. No. Yesterday's 22 prices is not 2024 prices, so a lot has changed in those 2 years. And so when we originally talked about it, and when we were really originally going through ARPA conversations and proposals, it was $1 million, and I just kept it at the same so that we could move forward. And I know in having some conversations with my colleagues, I'll be putting forth an amendment at least to reduce it, but we really do want to do the due diligence to see if we could get to a place layering on our partners from the county as far as other philanthropic dollars, if the due diligence phase goes well, to be able to see if we can get to a place to actually purchase the 3D machine to be able to test building 3D printing housing, at the same time going through all of the potential policy barriers, legal barriers, to actually make it feasible and reality, bring it to a reality here in Cleveland. So I just wanted to give people the context, because people are like, well, where is this stuff coming from? Being very clear, because people are not clear, and that's where it is. So hopefully that the director, you can get an understanding of the context. And from my perspective, where when I'm asking, a lot of times people are like, I don't know what we're going to do. And it's not just to put people or to pacify people or put people in a place. We really are trying to, in this due diligence phase, is really to see if we can identify financial partners that will be willing to actually help people, get the necessary loans, if you can find this product so that it can be properly insured, as well as potentially getting a mortgage. We have to get people from homelessness to house, and not having people just be, wandering out. And it's not just, like I said, this was my entry point, but beyond this homelessness conversation, we have an unaffordability problem.
Yeah.
We have an unaffordability problem. And my whole thing was like, what can we do? When we look at residents in Ward 7, we need to be able to find products that are under $150,000 or less. Like, that is necessary. It is not enough. There will never be enough subsidy in the world to bring $375,000 to this market. That is not going to happen. What is much in our view, is really trying to look for partners that can get us $150,000 housing or less, based on the economics for the thousands of households in our Cleveland area. That is what is needed. And if this is a pathway to at least try it, then I feel like, again, using one-time generational funding to just explore it is worth it. And on top of that, even at the end of the day, so we go through the due diligence program and it doesn't work, we'll continue on the path we're already going. We have to be willing to try things, even if we fall forward. So that's where I'm on that process.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. You understand what we're doing?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Hairston, and the committee members for having us today, also for Councilwoman sponsoring this legislation. I'm Michael Searing from Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, and I'm joined by Marcella Brown, our Vice President of Development and Communications, and William Tarter, our Director of Advocacy. This legislation could be a big step in bringing 3D printing to Cleveland for the reasons the Councilwoman shared. We're really excited about partnering with the city on this potential, and I'd be glad to take us through a few high-level slides. Mr. Chairman, could I distribute the materials as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So in those packets, it's a two-page proposal with a little more detail, and then the higher-level slides, which I'll take us through. First, just a little bit of background. I think most of you are familiar with Lutheran Metro Ministry. We're celebrating our 55-year anniversary this year. Are there enough packets? I'm sorry.
Need more?
Need more? Extra? Oh, yes, yes. There we have extras. Thank you. Thank you. And our mission to serve with people who are oppressed, forgotten, and hurting. I've led, as the councilwoman said, the 2100 Lakeside Men's Shelter since 2005. We've always seen the need for housing. Housing is the solution to homelessness. We started our first housing initiative in 2016, a shared housing model, and we've grown to now provide family housing for families leaving homelessness, and we've raised over $3.5 million for that initiative. We've always been looking for other solutions. Can we bring the cost down? Can we do it more effectively? And we think this solution has some good potential. So with that, I'll take us through. This gives the vision for us in this initiative, develop affordable, innovative housing with the city. We really would see bringing collaborative partners to the table. That will be part of the due diligence phase, talking to the CDCs and the other affordable housing providers, getting a lot of feedback, and ultimately providing the housing. This vision statement does include a comment on workforce development. That is not the primary purpose of this initiative. Affordable housing is, but I think as we go through it, there's a likely opportunity for, clearly job creation and some job training. So the next slide, why 3D printed houses? It can increase the housing stock. It can be fast. Our initial interest was addressing homelessness, but really affordable housing is affecting everyone. The houses, the technology can be used to design any size house at any price point, basically. So we think it has huge potential. Also, I think it brings an element of community stabilization to the effort, similar to us doing our family houses. We're finding properties that have been foreclosed for 10 years and renovating them and trying to, bring up kind of street by street. There's a lot of environmental benefits, reduced construction, and the new homes would, of course, be healthy and have universal design features. So for this phases and timeline, they're really spelled out more so in the two-page proposal, but the due diligence phase, as the council person said, it's really important. We've seen lots of claims about how amazing 3D printing can be. Push a button and a house pops out cheaply and quickly. It's a little more rigorous than that. I think, as the director mentioned, looking at models, across the country, there's a lot to it. We would really want the due diligence to also cover what types of looks and create like an array of housing options. We have an amazing architect that's been on builds across the country. We would want to work with building and housing and make sure that it's maybe a new standard for how codes and that go, and just really think all of these things through ahead of time. Phase 2 is really getting the equipment, training up the staff needed, and doing pilot houses. Phase 3 would be really exciting. That's full go. We'll have our efficiencies down and just really start building as many houses as possible. Part of this plan would also include really wrestling with some tough questions, like, are we planning to build on site or build in a warehouse, and you can bring the built concrete components to the site? There's various pros and cons of each, but that's something we would really want to go through. The next slide for potential funding sources. This was the legislation, the initial request. Obviously, a lower amount can still get us through the due diligence phase. We would really just want to try and get to the pilot phase as soon as possible. Then, without having a specific plan, we just thought of the rest of these things. There are existing dollars out there that once we have pilot houses, we would love to tap and partner on. Our family housing initiative, it was a $3.5 million goal. We're well over $4 million now, including money from the county housing department. So those would be the types of sources I think we'd go for in the replication phase. Final couple slides here. We were hoping to be the first in Ohio, but a couple people have already taken a crack at it. So the first one on the left there is Pantheon Innovative Builders. We have been talking to them about potential partnership. They are based out of Youngstown. On the right is, and these are both for-profit companies, on the right is Sustainable Concrete Solutions. Their house is, as you can see, partway underway. They're just outside of Dayton. And the last slide here, did we miss our last slide? I'm sorry. Go back. Oh, wait, maybe I hit it too fast. What's happening? Oh, there it is. Yes, this is a rendering. We have, as I mentioned, an architect who is at a nonprofit, IU Design, and he just really has a commitment and vision for affordable housing. He's the one that's been on builds across the country, and this is his vision of what a 1,000 square foot house in Cleveland would look like. I think the technology is such that you can make it look any way you want, and we would love to bring something exciting and fresh to Cleveland. So with that, I'd be glad to have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Suri. Any additional comments from your other guests?
Good.
No, nothing? Okay. Yes, yeah, they introduced. Yep, the introductions. Yeah, I got you. Okay, got you. All right. Again, thank you for the presentation, and for members, they also provided a one-pager back in front, for actually 2 pages rather, of additional information for you to consider as well. Just great designs. I'm looking here. I've heard of this, just never really had an opportunity to really dig deep into this process. Right. I know other communities have successfully done this. I know there are some challenges that not listed here, and I'm interested in hearing some of those challenges that exist when trying to develop these 3D type homes. All right, we'll go to Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair, I first want to recognize Councilwoman House Jones, as she always does, just pushing for solutions and kind of cutting through a lot of the conversations. I want to recognize her and thank her for leading this initiative and bringing this forward. Chair, there is a tremendous affordability problem, not only in the city of Cleveland, but across the country. And I speak often about how, obviously people that are experiencing homelessness, it's a terribly chronic issue, but I'll say middle-class people. I mean, and all throughout the entire spectrum, in this market, unless you are higher income, it is real difficult to become a homeowner. And there was just recently reporting through NPR about how we've hit the lowest point of homeownership and new mortgages in decades for low and low mod folks across the country. So the idea of bringing new and innovative approaches that take a risk and break the mold a little bit, I think is a really, really important step forward. a couple of years ago at the National League of Cities Conference, we even toured the modular units, which I think is another approach to take a look at as well in addition to this. But I agree with my colleague. I mean, we have got to do things differently. Even efficient new construction homes are north of 300. I can't afford that. I know a lot of people out there cannot. And let alone someone who's experiencing homelessness, right? I mean, so it's like the entire spectrum of folks in this community that could benefit from an approach like this, I think is critically important. And I'll say, Chair, to the Director, while Director, you didn't have knowledge of this before this morning, I'm the old man on council, Ohio City and Tremont tried for years to create an affordable new build housing program that has proven almost impossible with the current home construction approach. So this has been and we held land bank. We still have those land bank lots held on the near west side to try to buy down the cost of new construction and provide affordable homes for folks in the community. I think I held those land bank lots my first year on the job.
Yeah.
I'm on year 8. Okay, so the point is that I don't want to be a cynic, but I don't know that the current way that we do things, building houses, is going to work for affordability. It's just not going to. We've got to think about a new approach. And again, I think to the Director, this is something you have firsthand experience with because of the Near West Land Trust and the difficulty in bringing online affordable houses in the community. And those houses were slab. They were, decent, good houses, but they were not crazy fancy. I mean, it was not, we were not trying to build mansions over there, and it was just an incredible struggle. So I just really appreciate this new approach. A couple quick questions. Number one, or I guess this is more of a comment. We don't have them in front of us today, but Chair, I hope that as this moves forward, that Building and Housing is an active partner in developing a policy for this. I don't want to hear, we've never done it, we don't know how to, we can't do a permit for that, ... They got to be at the table proactively with solutions on how do we quickly permit these things. And city planning, absolutely. We don't have the luxury of being perfectionists. To the Councilwoman's point, we may stumble along the way, that's okay, that's life. But I would just say to the administration, whoever's watching, those departments need to be at the table because I can easily see how there could be pushback of, well, we don't know how that works, so we're not going to try. Or we've never done that before. And so we just have to make sure that as we move forward, we've got willing partners on council led by Councilman House Jones. Seems like the Department of Economic Development is very interested in this. But the tactical departments, Chair, that are going to permit these things have got to be proactively on board and cannot be any roadblock to these types of units. I think what's important too is we look at these this presentation too, noting that these are, given myself and Councilman Griffin and others work over the years on lead paint, these are lead free, which I think is critical, obviously given that they're new builds. So we understand the problem, horrible problem, chronic problem of lead paint poisoning in the city. Every time I see a product like this, I'm reminded that this is a product that's also lead free, and always kind of highlighting and pinpointing that. So Chair, I'm just curious to our friends at LMM, assuming that this legislation is passed by council, if it is, what does that timeline look like for you, and what help do you need from the city of Cleveland to move this beyond the initial investment?
Yeah, through the chair to the council person. So the due diligence would start immediately, and we already have just a list of what those pieces include. Part of it would be to visit the makers of the equipment and the housing developers, perhaps in Ohio, but there's other communities that have done larger scale, and we would really like the participation of the departments that you mentioned mentioned, of if a council would like to, come and we'll really do assessment of how those are working and how those could fit within Cleveland. I think we would finish the due diligence, including the feasibility, the business plan, what are these truly going to cost within 6 months, and then at that point, seek out the equipment.
Thank you. And again, Director, I would just, we got to have all the city departments at that table to make sure that they don't do all that work and then get to the city and the city says, we can't do it.
Right.
So we just have to make sure that those critical tactical departments are at the table. I appreciate that response. Chair, I fully support this. I'll just end by saying I understand that LMM's mission is around folks that are unhoused, but man, you could see this become a solution for everything from unhoused folks to middle-class folks to seniors to single people that are looking to get into home ownership across the city of Cleveland. This could truly be a solution. And then the last thing I'll say, Chair, I promise, I'm really also interested on the financing side of this. So we talk a lot about banks on this committee and in finance and the finance committee, but are there opportunities to partner with financial institutions? I think about the Home Heritage Program. It's a 1.4% loan through, and that's historic rehab. But the point is, are we able to develop innovative programs with financial institutions to help finance these things for our residents? To me, that's something that I think is another layer to this that we can really dig into. And again, a lot of times it's what are we asking for, right? And this could be a significant ask to our banking institutions to say, this is what we're asking for. One of the things we're asking for is for you to be a financial partner, not just in a donation, but in a financing perspective with these homes so that our residents have access to loans as well. So thank you, Chair.
Absolutely, you got it. And also our CDFI partners as well. Those may be, great partners who can understand this better than some of our larger lending institutions. So, no, I hear you loud and clear. Councilman Joe Jones, then Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was told about 27 years ago that we couldn't find any black developers to build homes in the Lee Harbor neighborhood. Just, there's no blacks around. Need not try, need not look. We've looked. We've turned over every stone to find a person to do that. And then the next step was, in terms of discouragement, was to say that we can't sell homes for $175,000 to $225,000 back in that period of time. And how much it actually costs to build a home then as it is today. And we see that those prices are up. But we had a gentleman by the name of Ken Laurie who broke into our market space first. And we had all of the reasons why no one would come and help. But he took a chance with his money. And then Mayor Mike White at the time was on the housing cake building and giving away these lots for $1, and the city would pay in $10,000 to help develop homes on these sites to do rehabilitation work. Well, I'm glad to tell you that after Ken Laurie broke the space in our neighborhood, that misnomer about you can't sell a house for $175,000 or $225,000 went out the window. And what happened from there was 350 homes being developed in that neighborhood. And I hear, the talk about what can't be done in the city of Cleveland, but a lot can be done in the city of Cleveland. And I think my colleague, Mr. McCormick, talked about one of the things that's fundamental here that we're all missing, and we continue to miss. Every time we have these meetings, we miss it. We just act like it doesn't exist. We talk about it, but we don't do anything about it. And that's the financial institutions, the banks in the city of Cleveland, loaning to the African American community. We are in a redlining situation right now. The reason why we have homelessness in the city of Cleveland is because we have racism in the city of Cleveland. We have institutions that are not willing to to distribute their fair share of resources in the African American community. That's why when you go over on the west side, it looks like it's a whole brand new built up place. It's because the financial institutions are supporting it. So our religious institutions need to really fundamentally start talking about how we deal with the financial institutions. And that's a major issue. And it has been killing our neighborhoods. And so I submit to this table here today, when we start talking about this new approach, it would be nice to have had a little bit more material than what you brought here today. And I've talked about that too, sitting here at this table, is that you're bringing a new approach, a new idea, a new concept about building a new product in this zone. And we don't know anything about this product. You know, it's a 3D printing. It sounds nice. It sounds great. So then now let's get into the questions, Mr. Chairman. How many companies right now are doing 3D printing in our region?
Mr. Siri?
Yes, Chairman of the Councilman. So in our region, there were the two examples in the PowerPoint being just out of Dayton and in Youngstown. I know Columbus has some interest. Ohio State's involved. I don't know that they've produced any houses. Depending on how we would define region, Indianapolis has an initiative. They actually are in plans of a $2.6 million initiative with an ultimate vision of 2,000 houses. So I'd like to see how their business plan is on that. There are other houses in the Midwest, and there's quite a few, I'd say, in Virginia and in Austin,
But in
Texas.
the state of Ohio, you have about maybe two or
Two
three.
or
That's what
three.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the cross country.
Okay.
But you did say something about how much money and how many houses?
So that was the Circle Indy plan, and I think their 2.6 million is for their startup, for their equipment and that, and they ultimately have a goal of 2,000 houses. So I imagine that they would be seeking all of the things we're talking about here as well, like how can they, finance those and make production, for that. Clearly, the 2.6 million in itself wouldn't pay for the houses.
So in your display here this morning, you talked about building homes at 1,000 square feet space. How much would that house cost me?
We project $150,000.
So that house would actually cost me $150,000.
That is the current projection. We would love to get it lower, but on the cautious side, I would say 150.
All right. So, and here's another thing I got to say, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman. You're telling me 150,000. So can I go to those places you're telling me right now and see the sticker price at 150,000?
Though currently, no. The
Right.
other houses.
And then how much is the concrete?
The concrete is about $40,000 of that.
Mr. Chairman, I just think that we need to vet this out. I know a little bit about this information. And so let me just say this. I don't know how you got to the table so fast with something like this. I do think that, Mr. Chairman, when we start introducing new products in the market space, we definitely need to do our due diligence here at this table here. The $150,000 that the distinguished gentleman is talking about, what it would cost to build this house here in this city using 3D printing, may not be exactly right. Did you want to elaborate a little bit more? Do you know any more about this, the printing, or are you, how experienced are you in this market space?
Mr. Siri?
Yes. So the much of the information is that 3D printing in total is 20% to 33% less than a traditional build. So if you applied that math to a standard build, that would be about the ballpark. Our project manager and architect has worked on builds, and he's the one that designed this, and he feels we can do it for $150,000 or less.
Let me ask this question then. Mr. Chairman, when we're building these houses, most homes in the city of Cleveland have basements. Will this house have basement to it?
Currently, no. The design is currently no.
So it's a slab,
Yes,
and so it's made fundamentally out of concrete.
correct.
Okay. Is there any foam structure being used in this process?
I'm sorry, foam?
Foam.
There would be insulation. The walls are built with space, and then there would be typically foam insulation to make them highly energy efficient.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that not that we pause, but that we have a better presentation. And I think that what would be helpful for the council is to actually see a construction of one of these products. Or if the distinguished gentleman can send to the council one of these actual, because they already have them all up and listed, how do you put these 3D printing places in space? Now, the next question is, Mr. Chairman, if I have electrical issues with my house after I built it, how do I change that out? How do I deal with that with concrete walls? Have you worked that out yet?
So the technology is such that when it's being built with the concrete, it leaves the spaces for the conduit, and so you can more quickly and efficiently put the electric and all of the plumbing in where the gaps are in the concrete. So from that standpoint, it would be like a traditional house.
I see. And is there room for expansion, for electrical expansion? So all those things are important. So as one family has a house and they have it as it is, the time changes, there's more hunger and need for electrical outlooks, outpaces in the house. How do you have you advanced to the state where you can insert?
I don't know the specific answer to that.
I see. All right. So then the next question, Mr. Chairman, will we have a second floor?
They could. We think it's most cost effective to do a single story. The technology, there's many printers that can now do second and third story floors as well.
I see. And so right now, in this particular case, your cost is incumbent upon building, utilizing lumber? Would that be where most of your costs will come in? Or partial? I don't know if you're using
partial,
lumber. Are you using lumber in this construction?
Not very much.
Okay, because I noticed you showed me this. This here looks like, this one here looks like it's lumber. Is that lumber at the top?
So those are other examples of other builders, and on the one, there's definitely lumber on the front porch. Our plan would largely be the exterior shell would be concrete, and the interior walls would be concrete.
So what about the roof? Would that be concrete?
The roof would be a standard roof.
It would be a roof, a wood roof.
Yeah, shingles, yeah.
All right. And is there a place, have you been to these places you were telling me about and took a look at some of those properties?
I have not.
Is there any properties in Ohio you've looked at?
No.
All right. Is there any properties you've looked at in the United States?
I have not seen any in person.
So you are sitting here at this table and you haven't looked at any properties?
Correct. Our partner has been on builds across the country, and he's designed this, and he's provided us the information we're sharing today.
Has there been anyone sitting here at this table who looked at one of these products?
I don't believe my colleagues have either.
I see. So has there been anyone who have had an opportunity to take a look how it's been constructed?
No.
And so we're sitting here at the table and you're asking the city for how much?
The due diligence phase would be $150,000 to fully vet and answer all of these questions. In addition to that is where we could start to purchase equipment.
I would suggest first you should have been to one of these properties before you came to this table. Because when this council person is asking a question and you don't know the answer to it, and you're asking for citizens' money, it sounds like an experiment. And we've had $511 million we experimented at this table. Some of the choices and decisions certainly was needed, but certainly wasn't the priority I think that the city should have went in that direction too. Now I'm open for, Mr. Chairman, new housing, but I've been in the housing market and I've seen how our people have been played. I've seen the hurt people who have paid into some of these new products, and I've seen the devastation to families. I've seen families kicked out of properties. I've had to go to certain properties and deal with the pain and suffering. And I've had crews of people working to try to resolve their issues. I've had people who were being evicted that committed suicide because they couldn't pay their note. So what I'm saying to you is that it would and this is no disrespect to you, distinguished gentlemen. I appreciate the fact that, and I appreciate the councilwoman who's here. We need to have new products. So I give you a star for looking at new innovative ideas. But when it comes to $150,000, the average price right now to build a 3D printing home is far larger than that, and for 1,000 square feet space. And it just depends on where you are. Now, if we're buying down the cost of buying the equipment is going to be owned by who?
Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry.
Oh, so you're Lutheran Metropolitan? You're not?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So please forgive me. You're
Okay.
the top minister?
No, I'm the Vice President of Housing and Shelter for Lutheran Metro Ministry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of housing stuff that's going on already throughout, and you do a good job, so I see your newsletters.
Thank you.
Let me just say this. It would be good for us to just come back and take a look at if you can get us a bigger, better presentation, and then really have some fundamental breakdown on how much these homes would actually cost. I'm averaging it at least $190,000 to $225,000. The question is how much will the banks jump in to help us out? Do you have relationships with the local banks, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman?
Yes, we have received funding from quite a few of the local banks for our Homeless to House Family initiative. Also, I appreciate the earlier comment on the CFDI. I'm on the board of Cleveland Housing Network, who recently launched a CDFI, and they would be open to such discussions, but any other financing as well.
So you would buy so let me make sure I'm on the same page. We would give you the funds, you would purchase the equipment, and then you'll be trained on how to use the equipment?
Correct.
Okay, and then once you were expert at doing this, then you would begin printing houses throughout the city of Cleveland on vacant lots?
Correct.
I see. So you're in the first beginning stages of it. How long, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman, have you been working on the project?
We've been working on this project since before COVID. We actually applied for a similar initiative to the National Enterprise capacity building competition for $10 million. And I guess I would share that we came in second place, which I think was validation that this is a good idea for the future, although second place came with $0. So we were both motivated by that and realized we still have to figure this out.
Well, once we start building the houses, I'm being optimistic here. Once you've worked out all of the kinks, because there are some kinks in the process, and you are building them, say maybe $175,000 to $180,000 or more, depending on the pricing, on these vacant lots. What's the next step? How do we get the homeless off the street into a $180,000 house?
Yeah, I think that there would be two aspects of the utilization of these builds. The first is what we're mostly talking about with home ownership. Part of Lutheran Metro Ministries' new strategic plan includes pipeline to home ownership. So we're very interested in that and wealth building, in particular for red line communities. I agree with your earlier points. The other way that this would be helpful would be similar to how we're doing our Homeless to Housed initiative, where we've raised money to renovate houses, and we have families coming out of the homeless shelters into our houses. So far we have 15 units. All of the families have renewed when their first year lease was up for a second year lease, and we've had no evictions. We also don't do any background checks. We don't look at eviction, credit history. The only thing we ensure is that family size matches the size of the home. So that's the kind of mentality we would bring to the rental side of this initiative.
So they wouldn't own it, they would be renting the property?
We would plan to do both. As we were able to fundraise for us to be the open-minded landlord for people leaving homelessness, that would be part of it. As much as we can build that people can afford to purchase them, even if that's with some subsidy buy down. So we would plan to do both.
And then the next question I would have, one of the issues that I'm having in my neighborhood now with low-income housing is the people who are moving in the homes. They are not they're leaving their garbage cans out. They're not trained on how to keep the home and keep it fixed up. Do you have a program that will deal with them with getting a home and their responsibilities as a homeowner?
For the rental, we do have referred to like housing readiness skill building, where we help people who are homeless understand lease, their duties, where the landlord's duties are, where theirs are. We haven't done a home ownership initiative yet, but I imagine there'd be some, financial literacy, some upkeep, some training as well.
Okay. So this whole piece is basically in the beginning stages. You got a long way to go.
Correct.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any unreadiness. It would ask, Mr. Chairman, that we do a deep dive on this, because as it begins the proposition to expand, we want to see what that looks like, the layout, and really, truly, if it's going to technically help a great deal of people, because right now we're, 10 years off from major production, or maybe 6 years off from major production?
So we would plan to do our full due diligence and answer the questions that you have and all of the planning within 6 months, purchase the equipment, and I would say we would be doing a pilot house probably within a year of that time.
I see. And then, Mr. Chairman, the longevity of the housing construction once it's put up. That's been another issue for our neighborhood, building homes. How long does that home actually last and stand up against time?
Yeah. The research I'm seeing are that these are extremely durable. They're durable for storms, tornadoes. They're really solid. So I would imagine they would probably exceed a traditional build.
I see. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Just as a reminder, all questions back and forth is not a free flow, that they need to go through the chair, okay?
Yes.
All right. But there were some really good questions and answers, so I didn't want to.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is a good idea.
Yeah,
but
I hear you,
it needs
Councilman.
some
Thank
more
you.
vetting.
All right, we're going to go to Councilman Harsh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will first say that Councilman Jones asked a lot of really good questions and brought up a lot of really good points.
Yeah.
As somebody who's spent almost 20 years of my life working in the housing industry, my hat's off to your understanding of construction. There are a lot of concerns here, and I do feel a little conflicted, Mr. Chair, because I love the idea of failing forward, and the Councilwoman's passion for solving difficult problems is pretty much unmatched, and I'm going to support this in some capacity. I think we need to try things. We need to be able to be a little bit bold and be a little bit creative in our solutions. However, Mr. Chair, I have been following the housing industry for 20 years. I used to work on a masonry crew. I've dug basements. I've laid cinder block. I've done a home renovation. I've repaired homes. And boy, when you want to repair a home, wood and drywall is your best friend. There is no better way to repair and fix a home than wood and drywall. And some of these 3D constructions, the concrete, you can't bore into them and put in a new outlet. You can't run new HVAC through concrete. There's lots of things you can't alter. I've watched housing trends come and go. We had geodesic domes in the 70s that were going to revolutionize the way we lived. We had inflatable houses in the 80s and 90s. We were just going to blow these things up and spray them with concrete. That didn't pan out. We had the tiny home revolution 20 years ago when everybody was just going to live in 350 square feet. That didn't pan out. John Fetterman was the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, and him and some buddies started welding shipping containers together. And they thought that was going to be the new housing revolution, and I think that ship has finally just about sailed. But now we're on 3D printing, and this is new technology. It's based on, some really cool stuff, and it's very intriguing. And at the end of the day, we are talking about concrete, though, and the largest 3D printing housing project in America right now that I'm aware of is down in Austin, Texas, Mr. Chair, and they are building, I think, 40 of these in a PUD, which is a planned urban development, which is the cheapest way to build construction. This is why Cleveland finds it so hard to compete with the suburbs when it comes to new housing construction. They just take a field, an empty field, and they wire the whole thing, they run pipes in the whole thing, and they've got nothing in the way, there's nothing in the ground, and that's what they're doing out in Austin, and they've got these 3D printers set up, and they're going, and they're printing their houses, and they're printing 1,500 to 2,000 square foot houses, and they retail from $475,000 to $600,000 each. In Austin, a city that I believe has a little bit more upward mobility financially than we have here in Cleveland. And one of the reasons why in a area of the country where they've got a 12-month build cycle, which we don't have the luxury of in Cleveland. We do not have a 12-month build cycle. We lose a couple of months in the winter. But they also have no rain. It's a very dry climate. They don't ever get shut down because of the rain. They're moving these things from one unit to the next, and they're still not able to get below $475,000. And while I'm a big fan of slab construction, Mr. Chair, because I think slab construction is really overlooked, Typically, when we build on slab in Northeast Ohio, we build a unit that has crawl space underneath it. We have a skirt around a manufactured unit that you pull that skirt back, and if there's an issue with your slab, because I would remind everybody that through your slab has to come your gas, your water, your sewer, all those lines come up through the slab. And if there's a problem with your slab, you need to be able to access that slab to go down there. Repairs, and with a manufactured unit, you peel back your skirting, you go underneath it, you make your repairs. There's also a water barrier. My understanding of 3D printed houses is they sit on the slab, and the slab is your floor, which means if you have a problem with your gas, your water, your sewer coming up through your slab, it's your floor, and now you're digging out the floor of your unit to try to fix something that's underneath your unit, which is a bit of a different sort of a problem to deal with. It doesn't mean that the problem is insurmountable. There are ways to put floating floors on top of slabs and have a little bit peel up, but it does add to the cost. And that's one of the things I think, Mr. Chair, the Councilman Jones does a good point of pointing out. There isn't a 3D printed house in Northeast Ohio that we can go look at to see how it's dealing. We have 4 seasons in this climate. We have a freeze-thaw cycle, something they're not even worried about down in Austin. We're not sure from evidence how these hold up. We have science, and we think the science is good, but science and evidence don't always agree with each other. So I would also point out to everybody that going back to geodesic domes in the 70s, all the way up to 3D printed houses now, we have a tried and true affordable housing model that tens of millions of Americans utilize across this country in all 50 states, rural and urban, called manufactured housing, where Clayton Homes, which was just bought up by Warren Buffett, which isn't really the best news in the world because we don't want to see monopolization of the manufactured home market, but Clayton Homes, owned by Warren Buffett, will sell a 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $60,000.
Really?
Yes. And for $80,000, you get a really nice one. And then those are made indoors at a facility. There's shipping issues, there's costs, there's set down, there's all the other issues that go into all other housing. But we have, in my ward, Mr. Chair, I have the last 2 remaining manufactured home communities in all of Cleveland. I have one on Brook Park and I have one on Ridge. And about 200 plus, maybe 250 people live in these communities. And they are the most affordable housing options available in the city of Cleveland, even when they put in new. And they're putting in new units and people are buying them. And to me, it is a tragedy that we haven't spent more time figuring out how to make that model work for more people, because it's proven and it's true and it's shown and it's available at our fingertips. But I do support the idea of trying new things, of being a little bit experimental. I wish, to the Councilman Jones' point, that we had more information about the actual process of constructing these in Northeast Ohio. But I'm willing to support a proposal to look into it and figure it out. The last thing that I want to say is, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at some of these pictures. I see this one here. This is the Tesla house. This is who owns Tesla.
Which one is it?
The left middle row one, the white box. What's his name? Eli. What's his name? Elon. Sorry. He basically took a manufactured home and made it look nicer and said that he could manufacture these things and ship them out like cars. And these don't exist. This has never been done. This is concept phase, and a lot of this is concept phase because concepts are easier than reality. And some of these manufactured too, they pour the 3D. I'm sorry. Some of these 3D printed, they pour the first floor is 3D, then they put wood on top.
Right.
Which weighs a lot less. Wood weighs less than concrete. So some of these are a concrete first floor with wood on top, which is going to add to the cost because now you've got 2 construction materials, and that's okay. And some of these are pure concrete. The ones in Austin are pure concrete. And I think they're all one story. But we're not trying to solve all the world's problems with this proposal. So we don't need to do that. But Mr. Chair, I'm sorry this is a bit of a rant, but I have been diligently watching housing trends in America for most of my adult life. And I always worry that shiny new things are attractive, not for reasons because they're successful, but because reasons for they're hopeful. For that reason, Mr. Chair, I will support a hopeful look into this proposal. And maybe we come out the other end with something that's fantastic, and that would be great. I would love to see that. And I understand that the councilwoman is passionate about solving difficult problems, so I'm here to help out in any way I can. But I would also like us to have more conversations about tried and true methods of affordable housing that we know are at our fingertips and available to us. And that is not a question, Mr. Chair, and I apologize, but that is my all directed to you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Harsh. I mean, you're right. Both you and Councilman Jones, you raised some good points. As I said earlier, what I don't see in the presentation are the challenges and the issues, the constraints that really does exist, right? I've seen these. Listen, I get a lot of, because of the position I hold, I get a lot of people that call me, email, talk to me, and want to present new housing types and why they think that they have discovered, the solution to all of our problems, right? And in fact, I had someone regarding 3D printing reach out to me and share some thoughts, and having a somewhat of understanding of home construction and how this process works, ask a lot of the same questions for them as well. However, I do think that you have to start somewhere, right? You have to begin to do your, as you say in your presentation, your due diligence to figure out, does this work for us? Can we make this work? Let's go and visit. Let's have these discussions. And again, Councilwoman House is putting the money forward for us to be able to do that work. And again, to my colleagues, this is a council-led piece, and so we just all need to remember that she has brought this forward with the use of redirected some dollars that were going to another community organization and now to another. Again, you all are doing some amazing work with, supporting the unhoused, right, and putting people in homes that, are not high-income earners, but people who really need somewhere to stay. And so I applaud you all for taking this step, along with Councilwoman House, to, look at some way to help the situation that we have. Again, as Councilman Hart said, we're not going to solve the world's problems with this piece today. However, this will get us at least to the next step in order to, have some possible solutions to address the issues that we see all across our city. Councilwoman Spencer, did you have anything? Yes, Councilwoman? Mm-hmm. I got you. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's been great discussion at the table today. And if, presuming this piece moves forward from this committee, I would say we have another opportunity on Monday at Finance Committee for further discussion. So maybe items that were brought up today could be addressed in a little more depth at Finance Committee on Monday, and that would be a worthy discussion as well. I really understand that this is an early phase of the project, very early, and that this would be early money. And early money does make a difference at times. Being able to go to other funders and say, we have city support confirmed can make a difference. So I understand that some of the questions are related to the unknowns owing to the fact that this is an early phase of the project. But I simply wanted to ask a couple of clarifying questions in terms of, and then I apologize if this was mentioned earlier, for the city's City Council's $1 million investment, what would be the total project cost through the chair? Total anticipated project cost.
Do the, Mr. Searing?
Through the chair to the councilperson, what would the total project cost be? So we're going in order. We would do the due diligence, the phase, the planning, the architecture, work with all of the people at the city. The next portion would be to actually purchase the equipment and then do pilot homes. And then from there, I think replication would be as much as possible based on the other funding. So $1 million would get us well past the feasibility and into the equipment purchase.
Okay, so there's not a sense at this time about what would be the total cost to build the first set of pilot homes, including all of the pre-development and the equipment leading, and I'm just trying to get a sense of kind of scale and how the $1 million fits into the project scale through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilperson, $1 million would get us, I would say, all the way set up to then begin building houses. So we would need to seek additional funds to do the pilot houses at that point.
And then through the chair, is there a certain goal of how many pilot houses that we would want to?
Through the chair to the councilperson, we felt that doing 2 pilot houses with 2 different models, maybe, one a little bigger and one the most cost-effective that we could be, would then set us up for the replication. We had looked at possibly about doing 3 houses a month at that point, and really emphasizing that they're going to be beautiful even if they're small or affordable.
And can we clarify through the chair, under potential funding sources, 3.5 million community development? And again, I apologize if this was already discussed.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilperson. So that 3.5 million, that we would be seeing drawing not specifically only from community development. I probably should have put like a colon. Those are all of the list of those potentials are where we would be seeking funding for the balance during the replication. As the director mentioned, we did have some earlier conversations. It would be great to have additional support, but those are early stage as well.
Okay, so then through the chair, if I understand correctly, it's approximately 4.5 million total in funding needed to build how many homes in initial? If I'm understanding, I just want to understand the scale.
Yeah, to the through the chair to the councilperson. That was what we were envisioning to really be, fully up and running. I don't have the exact number of houses. It's also based on our earlier conversation is 150,000, a price point that we can do. That number is a dollar amount that we've successfully raised for our Breaking New Ground Family Initiative. So it is a different initiative, but we feel that that dollar amount would have us fully launched with houses under our belt.
Okay, so I think owing to the nature of this, that it's a totally different construction type, and this is a startup, kind of starting from scratch, and a new technology in the city. This is a bit different than how I think council usually approaches its role with a capital stack, for lack of a better word, with the project. Usually we come in with a certain dollar amount, and then that adds up to a certain cost per unit, right? How much subsidy are we giving per unit? But I do understand that this is sort of working backwards a little bit, or working forwards, however you want to say it. So I think that would be helpful. I am, as a member of Finance Committee, presuming this is heard on Monday, I think that could be helpful to really have a clear sense of, what is the total project, what are the total startup costs, and then what are the ideally, what are the total project costs? There must be some goal in mind as to how many of these that are desired, and the overall scale that are desired, and then what additional dollars might be needed on top of that startup phase. I think that could be very helpful information. And then the last question I had was in terms of who would be able to live in these homes. Would it be LMM who's doing the, for lack of a better word, the people would apply, or there would be some, I think it's a little maybe too early for this conversation, but I just want to make sure I understand LMM's role, that individuals who wish to either rent or own potentially one of these homes would go through LMM for a type of application process. So just really trying to clarify that LMM is the agency that would actually be placing individuals in these homes. Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilperson. We would foresee that being true for our current model of people leaving homelessness into the properties that we own, that we rent to them, and invite them into affordable housing with us. For the idea of the home ownership, we would very much work with the CDCs and the other affordable housing builders with what resources they already have, and if this is a more cost-effective, desirable solution. So the other, some other communities that that have kind of like the buy downs on mortgages. We'd work with them, and this could, fit into that. If we worked with CDFIs, what are the existing rules for them? So our early thought on this is really thinking about it as a community asset, and we would really want to hone our expertise in the design and the building of the concrete structure itself, and invite partners as much as possible that fits what their mission and interest is as well.
Thank you. And so just to conclude my questions, at a minimum, there would be a certain number of units that LMM would want to build and property manage yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, is there a sense of how many units? Does LMM do this with any other properties, or is this a new expansion of LMM's housing work to be a landlord effectively and property manage individual units? Through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair, the councilperson. We currently do property management. We are a landlord for people leaving homelessness. We operate two models. One is a shared housing model, and the other is our family housing initiative, Breaking New Ground. We have our average price of renovation is probably about $130,000 for a full gut rehab, beautiful houses. So we would see this if maybe close a price point that we could actually build new instead. So we have 15 units on our goal of to exceed 20 units in that family housing initiative. So this would follow suit for that portion.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman House Jones.
Thank you to the chairman and to the committee for your questions. And yes, so first thing, I just wanted to, these aren't questions, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to provide some clarification. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, yes. So, A, is this an experiment? Absolutely. Yes, this is an experiment. I want people to understand there are a lot of things that we do not know. Yes, and it's an experiment, right? So again, giving back the context. When we had this conversation, and I will say myself with LMM 2 years ago, okay? This was a conversation from 2 years ago where it was the thought of $1 million to buy the 3D printing technology to test the idea. That was 2 years ago. Now fast forward in conversations, it was just like, okay, we can move forward with the idea. We never made any adjustments from the initial proposal, which the thought was to buy the 3D equipment in 2022, but now in 2024, right? Now the thought is it needs to be a phased approach. The first phase is to do due diligence. We have not done the due diligence and are trying to plan for an initial investment to do the due diligence so that people can actually go to a place to see what this looks like. If the due diligence does not pan out, it will be axed. And then we'll, talk about the thing as far as what additional fundings and things of that nature. But again, I want to talk from a perspective of how my mind thinks, right? If you have $1 million, you could purchase with $1 million, you could get, let's say in the case of the 6 prefab homes, right? You could get 6 families, that's $1 million, it would be done. In my mind, it's how do we get the city of Cleveland to get from a place of just being a consumer to actually being a manufacturer and a developer. We are currently in a phase where we are at the behest of every for-profit company trying to make money. No one is looking toward trying to help or partner with our people. We are always at everyone else's disposal, right? So when we're talking about the prices that are happening, the $470,000 that is happening in Austin, or the $275,000 that is happening with other 3D printing, those are intentionally for-profit companies. For-profit companies' only benefit is to benefit, right? To look at the increase that they can make their bottom line, how they can make sure their shareholders are getting money. L&M is not in that position. They are really trying to look at what is the lowest cost, how do we do something, and how do we put our position to be an actual manufacturer, developer, creator of something. And that's how my mind went into this. I want people to be very, very clearly. I do not think we should continue while I absolutely, when me and Councilman Harsh was having the conversation about the 3D printed home, which we did see on, when we went to, National League of Cities, and whichever the one, it was one. I think it's great. I think we should approach that. I also feel like we as the city of Cleveland have to put ourselves in the position to be a creator of something. We have to find a partner to be a creator that is not looking to enrich shareholders, that is not looking to increase more money for people that have everything at the expense while our communities are being divested, in deplorable conditions, right? And so that is a gamble that I feel like, or an experiment that I think we should actually take. Even if we don't get there, what will we have? Still be at the beholden of for-profit companies. So and I know I have not been able to have that conversation with people, but I want everybody, the public, to know from Stephanie House Jones' mind, this is how I am thinking. We, as the city of Cleveland and the partners, have to get into a position to build alliances and real partnerships to be creators. We can absolutely take the $1 million to give to someone to potentially get 6 houses, or in a lot of cases, 2 houses. I think it is a much better investment to experiment to see if we can become an actual creator of houses. I don't know if this is going to get us there, but I think we should absolutely try. That's what this is. So hopefully that can give some understanding from the conversations we have been having, and looking and to be able to answer what does this happen? What does this happen? I feel like we should do the work to be able to solve or answer these questions without just the reliance on for-profit companies who have done absolutely nothing to be true partners to our residents in the city of Cleveland. When you think about the average household income of a Ward 7 resident, which is $20,991, for-profit companies are not looking to have partnership with the Cleveland resident like that. That's where I'm coming from. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I would like to put forth an amendment.
Yes.
So I will move to amend Ordinance 339-2024 in Section 2, where it says that the cost of the grant shall not exceed $1 million and shall be paid from Fund Number 10 SF 400. I will move it, shall not exceed $500,000. And this is again, as we focus on, that the cost shall not exceed $500,000 and shall be paid from Fund Number 10 SF 400.
Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. And if it's okay with the councilwoman, there are also 2 small administrative.
Yep, I'll add those.
Would you like to read those?
Yep, I'll add
Thank
them.
you.
Thank you, sir.
That was the first one. That was the first
I
amendment.
second that, Mr. Chairman, the change.
Yeah, just.
Okay, I
just
just
read
add those
two.
one.
We'll roll
Okay,
them
that
together.
they're, this is again according to ordinance number 339-2024. In the title, line 2, and in section 1, line 1, strike economic and insert community in both places. In section 2, at the end, so it's changing the fund number from RQ to RQS 8006-RL2024-42.
Second that amendment, Chair.
All right, we have 3 amendments that have been proposed in the second. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, was the amendment to change Section 1, Line 1 from economic development to community development?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It is, again,
Okay.
Why, Mr. Chairman?
that was from the administration. That is the
That's where
desire.
the money's going to come from?
That is no, it's not where it's coming. That's where the
Community. Okay.
community development, that is
Okay.
from the desire from the administration
Just wanna make sure I
move
understood
from
that. Thank you.
administration to go to community development. And I'm glad to see Director Hernandez here, and she do not call on me. But again, that's what has been done.
All right, so we have the 3 amendments. There's been a motion and second. Any further discussion? All right, see no further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, ayes have it. All right. Well, listen, this has been a very robust conversation this morning. Before we go to finance, and maybe it's next week, maybe it's the week after. However, we want to make sure that we have some of the questions that have been raised here addressed in a little bit more detail. Councilwoman House-Jones, as you see, this is a passion for her, and her passion is supported by her colleagues as well. We understand that there is a need and trying to figure out a way to address the need that we have here, not only in the city of Cleveland, but, in our region. All right? All right, see no further questions. Ordinance number 339-2024 as amended stands approved. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Just keep doing this. All right. We're going to move on to ordinance number 369-2024 by council members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 3 of ordinance number 531-2021 passed August 18th, 2021 relating to accepting funding from the United States Treasury Department for purposes of implementing the Emergency Rental Assistance Program established under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and authorizing contracts to implement. Director, Assistant Director, CEO. All right, and I do not know your staff with you, so I'm sure you introduced them this morning, all right? Chief, all right. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Thank you so much. So we are here today for what we think is exciting, maybe not as exciting as this last conversation that you all had this morning, but we are helping residents out. So the Department of Community Development is going to introduce direct CEO Patterson of Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority. And if you wouldn't mind introducing your staff, and then we'll get into the item.
All right, just for our guests, just make sure the mic is, the light is green and we speak directly into the microphone. You can pull it close. You don't have to, be afraid of. All right? All right, that's just for our listening viewers as well, that we have live on TV 20 and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeffrey K. Patterson, Chief Executive Officer.
You shouldn't have to hold it. There you go. You're good.
Good
Yep.
enough? Okay.
We got that technology.
We got technology too, so we have to hold
Just a
on.
little bit. Y'all got you. All right, CEO Patterson, thank you.
And I'll allow my staff to introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Dory Bett Nolan. I'm Director of Policy Planning and Housing Mobility at CMHA.
All right. Thank
Good
you.
morning, members of City Council. My name is Sharonda Greer. I am the Chief of Operations and Administration at CMHA.
Thank you. All right. We know AD Wackers.
That's right. That's right.
We know that.
So we are here for an amendment to our ERA 2, Emergency Rental Assistance 2. So the short of it is that we have been partnering for the last year with CMHA through CHN, who was originally listed on the legislation. As we always strive to be more efficient, it makes more sense that we go at this directly, not through CHN, but that we directly contract with CMHA. So these funds are used to help those who have been affected by COVID for rental assistance, and I will pass it over to CMHA to talk about the specifics of where the dollars are going to be used. But what we're doing here is taking decertified money from CHN. CHN decided prior to the end of the grant year that they no longer wanted to be in the business of doing this type of rental assistance. And so taking those funds from what was contracted with CHN and again, directly letting that flow to who has been doing the work, which is CMHA. So again, originally contracted with CHN, and then after CHN decided to step away from this, we didn't want the money to be sent back or not be spent, and so then we worked through CHN to have CMHA do work. But we believe that it is more efficient if we go at it together. But CMHA, so sorry, CMHA can speak to that partnership that they did through CHN, how many residents they impacted, and what they plan to do with the balance of these dollars once decertified.
Thanks, Director. Before we go to CO Patterson, and you said CHN just wanted out of the business. What's the reason that they couldn't get these funds out? They were over capacity. What's the issue?
It just was not their focus. I don't want to speak for CHN, but they decided, and this wasn't a year ago. I think that this is now at least over a year and a half ago. So pretty quickly, they decided that this was not the direction that they wanted to go in, and so they were able to do good things with the money, but also. I know you all have probably heard me talk about sometimes we flood the system with dollars, and I think this was a case of flooding the system with dollars. The county also got emergency rental assistance from Treasury through the state, through the county. So there's a lot of sources of these dollars, and they decided that they no longer wanted to continue with that project. And graciously, CMHA stepped up and said, we can help residents.
Got it. So they helped all the people they felt like they can help, or at least who were in their pipeline. They assisted all of those folks, had money left over. And I'm assuming that they use all of the county money they received as well, which is why we have a balance, or they still have some of that left.
Through the chair, I believe the county had additional dollars. I am not sure, right? I can't speak to the contract between the county and CHN, but CHN desired to not be in, to do this type of work. And so, again, we're gracious enough that CMHA stepped up to the plate to spend these dollars.
Right, I got it. And grateful for CMHA. Just wanted to get an understanding, like when they just pull out of doing the work. That normally is a reason why, right? Either they have excess dollars, other dollars that can be better spent. Ours may be restricted just to Cleveland. They can better spend the other money, those type of things. But if we have another partner who's willing to step up and help us expend these dollars, absolutely. CEO?
Right. Good morning, Council, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Before I turn it over to Chief Nolan and Chief Greer to kind of give an overview of the work that we've done, I just want to thank Director Hernandez as well as City Council for giving CMHA an opportunity to even be considered to administer these funds. I think, as you know, over the last several years, rental assistance has become something that I believe is much needed to try to prevent people from being evicted for actually having to not be able to pay their rent. It's a tool that has been utilized based on a pandemic, the fact that so many people fell behind during that time. And it's been something that I think has really preserved the opportunity for people to remain housed and to not increase the amount of homelessness that's out there in the community today. So with that said, I'm going to ask Chief Nolan to give you a brief overview of how the program would operate, and then we could take any questions if that's your pleasure.
Sounds good. Chief Nolan?
Thank you, through the chair. Through the funds available through rental assistance, we will assist families living in CMHA-owned and managed properties to pay down their past due balances. We were able to partner with CHN, and in fall of 2023, assist over 600 families and individuals with $1.2 million worth of rental assistance. And that is, not to mention, an additional 1,000 families had put in applications for that rental assistance, but were not able to be served before that program closed out. So we anticipate being able to serve those 1,000 families who are still living in our subsidized housing with incomes right around, the average income for folks that live in our housing is right around $11,000 a year, to assist them in paying down those balances and keeping them from facing eviction in housing that we know they so desperately need. We will take additional applications should funding be available such that we can do so and serve as many families as possible. Chief Greer, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I can add. We hosted rental assistance clinics at our CMHA main campus and also at every one of our property management sites. So we had a short turnaround to utilize some of the funds at the end of 23 with CHN. So we hosted rental assistance clinics. I believe we had a week and a half. And so in a week and a half, we received over 1,600 applications and were able to get 600 of them approved. So like Ms. Nolan said, we still have a backlog of residents that we're trying to help, and we'll continue to reach out to our residents that are still there that have a balance. You know, affordable housing is a necessity across the nation, not just Cleveland. So we're housers. We don't want to evict. We want to keep our families housed. So whatever, by any means necessary, we will do whatever we need to do to expend these funds to keep our residents housed.
All right, got it. So I'm looking at the certificate of funds. This is $10 million?
So, Assistant Director Wackers, do you want to talk about what is the decertified, the decertified amount?
So through the chair, or to the chair, that's the original amount allocated to the city of Cleveland by U.S. Treasury. CHN was able to spend a portion of the money. The remaining balance that would be decertified is about $4.8 million.
Okay. So 4.8 million, gotcha. Out of the 10 million is remaining that CHN was not able to get out of the door.
Correct. And just a little understand what CHN stepped in, and I think the rental assistance really overtaxed its organization to an extent, and it wasn't, since they could only perform it as a subrecipient, it really wasn't a profit driver. They can only reimburse their existing costs. And originally they thought they could do this program around 12 individuals. It greatly increased to around 50 part-time temporary employees. And the fact that the program's going to sunset, it was just an investment that really didn't have any dividends in the long term for them as an organization.
Gotcha. All right. And to CMHA, what's the number of folks on your waiting list or backlog? The $4 million would you be able to spend all $4 million?
Yes, we would.
So that backlog would take that $4 million?
Yes.
Okay.
You have some more, we'll take that as well.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Yeah, my question, because I don't want us to come back here again and now we've shifted dollars to someone else, and after you exhausted your list of folks who are waiting, who apply for additional assistance, and there's $2 million left over, another $1 million, and we're back here again trying to figure out who else we can give money to get these dollars out to support them. All right, Councilman McCormack.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. One logistical question to CMHA through the chair. Good to see you, Chief. The chief and director. Did I get that right? That's right. Okay. Is this so? When the money is allocated, will it go to the resident and back to CMHA, or will you just clear the backlog through the chair, like internally from an accounting perspective?
Through the chair to the council person, yes, we will be able to just directly apply it to their ledgers and bring down their balance.
Great. So it'll just reduce the bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
Love it. Great. So, Chair, I would just say that thank you to the department and working with CMHA. This sounds like a great outcome for this situation. And if we've got 1,000 families that originally thought they were not going to get help, and now they're going to get the good news that they're getting help, that's phenomenal. And, obviously that will take a level of stress off of folks and hopefully allow them to utilize resources in other places in their lives. So it's all good news. Chair, I really don't understand, and I'm kind of removing my friends from CMHA here at the table, but how CHN could not get this money out. Like that, there is and was such an incredible need, and I see them doing a whole bunch of other stuff. but this was a core tenement to the reason we partnered with CHN during the pandemic to help families. And I know I got a lot of families in my ward that could have used those dollars. So do we have an idea? I mean, the city partnered with them. Our expectations, I'm sure, were to get the money out the door. So again, I'm thrilled with this outcome that we can help families in CMHA, but do we have any grip on why they didn't get that money out, Director?
Through the chair, so this predates my time here a touch. My understanding is that through the chaos of the pandemic, they were one of the first and only partners that were able to step up and create a program. My understanding is this is not something that CHN typically does, so this was them kind of flexing beyond what they typically do to make this work. I believe they tried it for a year. They had an active program for maybe a year and a half, for 2 years is when they had an active program. And I believe it was the end of my first year here when they made it clear that they were needing to pivot. And graciously, pretty much as soon as that conversation was happening, we were looking for other ways to spend these complicated to spend dollars. And through some good conversations and good partnership, we thought that this was the easiest way to quickly spend these dollars down. And so what we did after that point was worked for several months and honestly, I think the better part of a year to get a contract in place that both protected CHN, CMHA, and allowed dollars to flow through. It was just too difficult to do that.
So Chair to the Director, loving the team here, appreciate everyone hustling to get this done and to come out with a great solution. I guess my question is more than Chair for CHN. I mean, I generally, there have been questions at this table historically about their capacity when we partner with them, concerns about their capacity, concerns about their customer service with our residents and ability to do that. So this kind of, unfortunately, I think plays into those concerns, quite frankly. And so maybe we bring them at a future date to the table to get an update on what they're doing. But again, I can't think of a more important role for an organization like CHN than ensuring that folks don't go into homelessness.
Absolutely.
By providing rental assistance. So again, that's just more of I'm not going after anybody. I'm just saying maybe we need to touch base with them to see what their mission statement is at this point, because again, getting $4 million extra bucks out the door to help people stay in their homes seems like a pretty core tenement to an organization like CHN. But again, really want to thank CMHA. Director, I'm sure you guys did a ton of hard work internally to make sure these dollars stayed in Cleveland. So really want to recognize that and didn't go anywhere else. So appreciate everyone pivoting. And then Chair, would be curious at a conversation with CHN about kind of what an update from them. If this wasn't a priority, if they weren't able to do this, what are the priorities of the organization?
Absolutely. We'll make sure we do that. Let me ask you this before we go to Councilman Jones. Will these funds only support those who are living in CMHA-owned properties, or like we have a Section 8 voucher and and if you're behind on your portion to the landlord, will this help those individuals as well?
Through the chair, currently the application that we have are for CMHA owned and managed properties. So we will be addressing those since they've already, applied.
Sure.
But should we have additional funds, we could expand to the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Okay, got it. Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director or Mr. Wackers, whoever can handle this question. The question would be, when this program was given to Cleveland Housing Network, it was, for the most part, to help people who will fall behind in their rent. And if they fall behind in their rent and they needed assistance, this program would go to help them. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct.
And Mr. Chairman, what was the parameters of the program as relates to that? Was it focused on all the citizens of the city of Cleveland who were in affordable housing situations, or was it just to a particular group?
Through the chair to the councilman, it was, especially under ERA 1, it was for any resident who was experiencing a COVID hardship. there were no income requirements.
I see. So there was no income requirements. So can you elaborate?
So through the chair to the councilman, it was really if you were becoming delinquent on your rent because of hardship caused by the pandemic, such as you weren't able to go to work, you were eligible for these funds.
And is that still the qualifying factor for these funds, given the fact that they have not all been spent?
So the COVID hardship has been loosened because of the time frame since the pandemic has occurred, but there are, under the second program, releasement of Treasury, certain requirements, but there is great flexibility, and all tenants in CMH housing or Section 8 housing would qualify under ERA 2.
So you changed it to go to CMHA, or has it been changed, Mr. Chairman? Has it been changed to be directed towards only CMHA?
To the chair, to the councilman, the program rules have not changed, and we have not changed the program rules. I think we're at the table here to ensure that we can spend the money.
So this is still open to all the citizens of the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Wackers?
No, Councilman Jones, that's the piece here today, is to replace CHN with CMHA.
Right, I got that, but it's
Yep.
still the same funds for the same purpose. It was given to us by the Treasury of the United States. The question is, Mr. Chairman, I seen the director, did you want to add to it?
Yes, through the chair. So the overall program from Treasury has not changed. The program administered by the city has not changed. But since our partners have changed, the target audience has changed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I got some uneasiness there because the whole proposition and purpose of the actual grant was to be for all citizens in the city of Cleveland. And I got a problem, Mr. Chairman. I've had to send people to my local development corporation who went, and I think Kerry McCormick talked about this, and this is a problem here in this city. We can take money and then shift it around and do what we want to do with it, when its intent was for something else. And so my issue is, Mr. Chairman, is that when I have my local development corporation paying for people because they can't pay their rent, or they can't afford to stay somewhere, or they've been kicked out, or family's been put out on the street, this is not fair to me as in my neighborhood. And so, you know, and I got a problem because always money is being shifted somewhere else. And when it's shifted, our people don't get an opportunity to fully benefit from it. And so I don't have a problem with sharing the money with CMHA, but I don't want my people in my neighborhood to be locked out of this money. And so far they have, Mr. Chairman, because, Mr. Chairman, we haven't been able to get Cleveland Housing Network to help us out. And it's as Mr. McCormick, the distinguished gentleman with the beard, has eloquently stated here at the table. Right? He's eloquently stated there's a problem in customer service. So our people can't get in there. I have to have them go drive down there to Cleveland Housing Network. And now who do we have them call? I mean, how does this work for the citizens of Ward 1?
To the chair, to the councilman, so this, obviously we're looking here for a partnership with CMHA, but to ask your direct question about residents at large. There still is a rental assistance program within Cuyahoga County that is spending the same dollars, but from the state of Ohio. And that's through the Step Forward organization. So residents certainly have access to rental assistance. I think we are looking at a partnership that currently that we want to leverage and continue to move forward, and provide rental assistance to hundreds, if not thousands, of residents of Cleveland.
Thank you, Chairman. To the councilman, there's 2 points that I really need to hit on that haven't been brought up yet. We have a mandatory spend down, and not decide who to spend with, but a mandatory spend down of these dollars by September 2025. So what we are looking for is a partner, even if it is a more limited pool than the entire city. What we're looking to do is spend these dollars down appropriately, compliantly, help as many residents as we can. This is the pathway that gets us there. The other thing that I want to mention is that CMHA supports the entire city of Cleveland, and when we are able to aid them, it frees up dollars for others, for other uses, whether those are capital improvements that are much needed. I've had an occasion to spend some time with CMHA and talk about how tight their budget is and how they would love to be doing more if they had a little bit more flexibility. This gives us an ability to free up some dollars so that they can continue to serve at a high level all eligible Cleveland residents.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the director, and I think the director kind of hit on it, and an assistant director touched about other programs. But the question was really specific. How does this help my citizens in the Lee Harbor Ward 1 area? So we'll see MHA getting a little bit more tedious here. Will CMHA make a commitment to help us in our neighborhood with our issues with people who can't make their rent?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, yes, we'll make that commitment to work with you and your ward in your area for particularly residents or voucher participants that are involved with our business.
Okay, and that would be anybody who would need rent assistance, Mr. Chairman, for clarification through the director.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, that would be for anyone that needs rental assistance that is a participant or resident of one of our programs.
So a regular citizen, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I'm clear, because I hear what you're saying, because that's the extra add-on there. So if Mrs. Johnson down the street misses her rent payment for whatever reason, can she come to you and get that rent payment relieved? Like the program is written now?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, as the program is set up now, and under the agreement we have with the city of Cleveland, that would not be permissible, but we would work with that resident to allow them to find other opportunities through Step Forward and other agencies to be able to get that addressed. We may not be able to provide the direct service, but we would assist them in providing guidance to them where they could get that level of assistance.
So the reason why we're here right now, Mr. Chairman, is that Cleveland Housing Network, and that's why we should have just broke it down and told it like it was, and we wouldn't have to be pulling and peeling back the layers of the onions here. The issue is Cleveland Housing Network couldn't spend the money. You have to spend this money by what time?
Through the chair, September 2025 is the end.
So if it's not spent, it goes back to the Treasury?
Correct.
All right. So now you have encumbered it with Cleveland. You've encumbered the process and changed it around with CMHA so that now it benefits CMH only and its subsidiary systems. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it benefits the 1,000+ residents that CMHA serves directly.
But it doesn't
yes,
benefit.
That are throughout the city
So
of
it's
Cleveland.
changed now, Mr. Chairman, to not benefit people like living in Ward 1 who is not a part of CMHA programming. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct, that this is a more specified, more manageable program that can ensure that the dollars are spent down by 2025 compliantly.
So Mr. Chairman, you'll be able to, the director of CMHA, spend down the rest remaining this money. You already know that.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, yes.
Do you have $4 million already that they owe? And Mr. Chairman, let me just, because see, this is a subject matter that we just got through talking about earlier, sitting at this table, about affordability housing. And see, and this is something, Mr. Chairman, to the director, because we have a housing program, I'm not impressed with it. I think that we need to get a little bit more granular with it and really fundamentally identify what the issues and situation is. You have people who are living in CMHA housing right now, and so for those people who can't pay their rent, what is your average rent for a person at CMHA who can't afford their rent?
The average, through the chair to the council person, the average tenant portion is right around $200.
So they can't afford $200. And so then they have to come to you now for another subsidy. They're already on one subsidy. They can't afford the $200. Do you have some that's lesser than that in the neighborhoods that's paying $50 and can't afford that too?
Through the chair, yes.
So you have people who at $50 can't afford $50 a month for housing.
That is correct.
And if they didn't have CMHA, they would be on the street and be homeless. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished lady, Nolan?
Yes, that is correct through the chair.
So we're in a real bad place, Mr. Chairman. And and knowing, and I don't have no unreadiness because I understand that we want to use all the money here in the city of Cleveland. The only problem I have, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Patterson is the fact that you have now fixed it so, or the administration has fixed it with you so that we can't have access to that program. And so though I know about this other step-down program that was brought up by Mr. Wackers here this morning, I just think that there should have been some flexibility in this, Mr. Chairman, to the director, so that if citizens, other citizens in the city of Cleveland who have been waiting, who are legitimately in need and really fundamentally need assistance, that this should also assist them and help them. Because, Mr. Chairman, to the director, and with all due respect to Mr. Patterson, I understand your operation feels that if you're going to use this money, it's going to be for you. And my proposition is that if the intent, Mr. Chairman, of the federal treasury of this government was to help all the citizens of the city of Cleveland, even though there's 40% of the funds that are left, that some options should be made available, and that's my problem here, Mr. Chairman, with this piece. Is there a possibility that we can change this, Mr. Chairman, to the director, to open it up for a limited percentage of Clevelanders who may need assistance and help, who are legitimately in need?
Through the chair, at this time, we do not have partners lined up to take these federalized funds with all of the requirements and red tape that we can quickly stand up a program that ensures that we get the dollars out. That is a risk that I am not willing to take at this point.
Well, we have one sitting right here in front of us taking $4 million. So the question is, will he be able to assist us in some respect, even if it's by a small percentage? Because the issue at the end of the day is we can't help it because we selected the wrong partner. And now we have to pay the price of this sitting here at the table. So, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Patterson, would you be able to help some Clevelanders with part of that money?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your point. And I think from our standpoint, the residents that we serve, especially in this area, are City of Cleveland residents as well. And those are the residents that we focus on and we administrate for every day. And we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to provide this service to those residents. If the city decided that they were able to find someone else to assist them for the rest of the other areas, that's up to them. But our primary focus and what we have to rely on and what we're responsible for is trying to do what we can to try to help serve the residents that we are empowered to serve.
And so the city, Mr. Chairman, to the director, doesn't have the capacity to take a percentage of this to help its residents out? I mean, are we that bad, that depleted, that drained, that we have to shift the money to another agency to utilize it only for their people and not for the intent of the actual piece from the federal treasury?
Through the chair, I'd like to note that this is one tool of many tools that the Department of Community Development has to push affordable housing. And so for this tool specifically, we do not have an ability to hire staff, to create a program, and to compliantly get dollars out to residents. We do not have the capacity to do that by the 2025 deadline for expending these dollars. As you know, we have several other programs, many ARPA, many other programs, our traditional CDBG dollars.
Will they do this too? Will they be able to help people pay for their rent, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair, not specifically for a rental program. This was highly specialized funds for a specific reason, and creating a new program is just not a reasonable expectation for the department at this point.
Well, Mr. Chairman, here, winding down, I'll say this. I'm really concerned at the depletion of our city, not having the capacity to be able to negotiate a percentage here for the rest of the citizens. I represent Ward 1. My people want every penny and every nickel and every dime they can get. We need it. We're not the neighborhood we was of days of old. And it has been eloquently stated here at the table from time and time. Our people have needs too. So when we do these things, Mr. Chairman, in the future, you should take that under consideration. As relates to these funds here, I would hope, and I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, about, because we just got through talking about affordable housing and an operation of building homes at 150, maybe 175,000 at the end of the day. Poor people can't even afford the $5 and $50 and they're already subsidized in your places. So Mr. Chairman, to the director, I'm really concerned about how we do our housing program in the city of Cleveland, and that's one of the reasons why we have the distinguished lady, House Jones, moving to try to do whatever she can do in any kind of way out of desperation. Because the crisis is so great. And we've heard our colleague Chris Harstown at the table earlier this morning in his testimony talking about that you can build a house for $50,000 if you use pre-built homes and bring them in and chart them in. And so, you know, we have to do something about this crisis that's quietly developed in the city of Cleveland where people can't afford housing, and we have to, you know, Mr. Chairman, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time, because we still have not, in the 6 years I've been here, 2 administrations have dealt with the issue of the redlining. And what really makes it really bad, Mr. Chairman, is that now we got black people running everything. We got a black mayor, we got a black council president, we got black staff leaders, we got black faces everywhere. And it just almost seems that you ain't even black. I don't know what you are, alien or something. Because at the end of the day, I've been sitting here at this table talking about the big elephant in the room, and you can't get nothing done in this thing called America if you don't have money. And if our financial institutions are continuing to discriminate against the African American community, we will not move nowhere in the next 5, 10 years. I've sat here, Mr. Chairman, with Fannie Lewis, and we've argued, she's down at that end of the table, I'm down here at this end of the table, about the despair in our community. And when you have people who are already subsidized and can't afford to pay $25 or $50 for their rent a month, then that should tell you something about our financial state of existence on the east side of the city of Cleveland. And I'm disturbed about it, Mr. Chairman, that we're sitting here with $4 million, and we have citizens who may not be in CMHA, but they're still desperate too. So then I ended with this last question, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Wackers, since he brought it up. How much money is left in that county program that you just talked about? Step it down, and how can I access it, and who's the director of it, and how much money is there, and who do I need to call?
Through the chair to the councilman, I know that the state of Ohio is contracted directly with.
Here we go.
Step Forward in order to administer rental assistance. State of Ohio received well in excess of, I think, $400 million.
So how much do we have left?
To the chair, to the council, I mean, I don't know what they have left, but it certainly is, I know that they would have resources still to expend in the county.
Mr. Chairman, who's the contact person?
Can we get that, Mr. Wackers? No, he should know. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wackers brought the program up, so I thought that Mr. Wackers had an in-depth knowledge of the program. So me calling the state representative, the state senator, doesn't mean nothing. We're sitting at this table talking about $4 million that's supposed to be spent in the entire city of Cleveland that's now been relegated because one organization or operation failed to be able to comply and do what they needed to do. They bit off more than they can chew. And so now we're sitting here at this table, and I'm just asking simply, if you bring up the information about where I could go, then I would like to know the phone number of the contact person. If not, then you just didn't know. It was just a quick response. So all I'm saying to you, Mr. Chairman, the director, if you're going to come here to the table, be ready. Have your homework ready. If you say something, then it should mean something. If you say something, you should have the information for it, Mr. Chairman. I got people to take care of, 25,000 of them, and I mean to take care of every single one of them and super serve my customers in my neighborhood. And when I sit here at this table, this is where the bacon is produced. And so when you take my bacon off my table and give it to someone else who say, oh, well, no, we ain't going to do nothing with you. We're going to take it and do it with our own folks. That's a problem.
And it's a problem because the city should have seen that and made way in a different way. I don't have no problem with CMHA. Mr. Patterson, I think he does a wonderful job. God bless his soul. And he's been here working for the previous administration. He's been a great professional here. But you're taking money out of my neighborhood, and I got a problem with it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Can you, Mr. Wackers, in addition to us contacting our representative, you can get that information of who to contact for the rental assistance that still exists. All right. Thank you, Councilman Harsh, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think most of my questions have been addressed, but just to review so that I'm on the same page, through the chair to our friends at CMHA. The money will first be used for residents who rent directly from CMHA, and then expanded into people who are on a Section 8 or housing choice voucher program through Section 8.
Through the chair to the councilperson, yes.
Okay. I was going to ask Mr. Chair, what percentage of overhead CMHA needs, but since you're the landlord, you're kind of like all the overhead. It's just rent that's due to you already that hasn't been paid by people that are falling behind, and you'll just make them square by relieving their back due amount.
Through the chair, that is correct.
And through the chair, does that account for the entire $4 million? Is there enough back due amount that you're able to just deplete that with the 4.8 or whatever this is? Or will those still be something you have to work with Section 8 and find other?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we believe we're close, but we want to make sure we have time to kind of go back and look at it and make sure that we're able to make sure people are still eligible as we go through this.
Through the chair, but you think you're close, and if you're off and you're not quite close, you'll be able to find the rest through the Section 8 voucher.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, housing choice. I'm sorry, old habits die hard.
I know.
Y'all deal with this every day. I apologize.
I know what you're referring to.
Okay, it's housing choice.
Yes.
Okay. Second one, through the chair, will this, maybe somebody asked, I'm sure we probably did, we always ask this question, will these funds be used specifically for residents in the city of Cleveland? Because C and CMHA is Cuyahoga, I believe. Will this be specifically for the Cleveland residents?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we will work in that direction, yes.
Okay. Through the, Mr. Chair, I'm reminded again how lucky Cuyahoga County is to have Cleveland in the middle. Because we do so much that benefits people that don't live in the city of Cleveland through our efforts that expand, just like we did medical debt, which has relieved $150 million in medical debt for Cleveland residents, and another $150 quite accidentally for people that don't live in the city. But hey, good things lead to more good things. Through the chair to the director, not director, CEO. I would hope that we can focus as much of this on the Cleveland residents as we can, because ostensibly we are the city.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, if I could say, yes, that will be what we will be doing.
Okay.
Yes.
Through the chair to the CEO, since you're here, what percentage of your residential units are outside of the city?
Mr. Chairman, the councilman, a small percentage of our housing units are outside of the city of Cleveland. Probably
10?
under maybe 15%.
Under 15?
Under 15%.
Yeah.
Maybe even lower than that.
Okay.
In terms of the actual properties that we own.
Fair enough. Through the chair to the CEO, perhaps we could notify residents who have had their rent, their back due amount dismissed through this project, that this was a project of Cleveland City Council and the city of Cleveland and CMHA, so that they understand that their city is helping them. Perhaps if they get a letter letting them know that $200 they owe has been relieved. Just like we did with medical debt, we could let them know that this was a project of the city so that they can understand, how we actually do get involved and help out.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, as part of the letter that we will issue to folks kind of level setting everything, we will include that reference.
Okay. I have no other questions, Mr. Chair. I do understand my colleague, Councilman Jones' concern. Originally, I believe the intention was that, Fred and Rita, who pay their landlord, Rodney Anonymous, X amount of dollars a month, they would be able to access this fund to pay their at-large landlord. And it seems like those funds weren't able to be distributed to those residents, which is like 100% of our rental residents in our ward. Most of them all pay a landlord, and those folks are no longer able to access these funds because our first partner was not able to distribute those funds in a timely and efficient manner even though we know there's probably enough need out there. So unfortunately for our residents who do just pay on the private market, they're not going to be able to use these funds. However, our friends at CMHA do keep housed some of the most financially struggling members of our community, and it's also important for us to care and help people when we can. So I share in some of the frustration that this did not end up helping the same volume of people that it could have, but I am glad that we have a willing partner that's able to help put this money to good use to help keep our neighbors housed. So thank you for stepping up. I understand that this is something you were brought into to sort of help relieve a problem created elsewhere, and I appreciate you stepping up to help us do that, and that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been really informative discussion today and great questions from my colleagues. I wanted to just reconfirm for our committee and also just for the listening public who may be listening, we're still talking about one-time funds. We're talking about one time, I'm actually surprised to be at the table today talking about pandemic funds still, to be honest. So that was something I was not anticipating. So I just want to reality check for myself and us collectively that this is the end of these ERA2 funds. And then through the chair to ask a question to the other side of the table, is there any chance that any more rental assistance would become available going forward that we know of through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the ERA2 program, there were a number of deadlines in 2023 around the spring, so about a year ago, where they were reallocating funds from communities that had not spent money to communities that had been spending money. Those deadlines have passed. There's really not reallocations in the cards that we're aware of. If U.S. Treasury tries to do one last push, we'll let you know, but at this point in time, we assume we are required to just spend on the money we have.
I mean, and yet I think we all know that the need is still great. So that's why this discussion, I think, has been so robust today. So through the chair to our friends at CMHA, I also wanted to clarify, so you all had an internal waiting list of 1,000 households, and will all of those households be served through these funds? And then are there any additional households who will be served who are not already on your waiting list?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, we're going to go through a process of reviewing those 1,000 applications to make sure that there's still the need, that they're still there. Once we've done that, then we will move through going to other properties and the engagement that Chief Greer mentioned about reaching out to others to give them an opportunity to utilize those funds as well.
So, Mr. Chair, it could be, I don't know if we need to make it as formal as an amendment, but I think it could be of interest to get a report back on this, on how that's going, right? How many households are served, ultimately how, a final report on how these dollars would spent, or midway report, I think would be of interest so we can understand the direction it's going in. And I think Councilman Harsh's point was very well taken, that certainly it's our duty as members of this body to advocate for City of Cleveland residents.
Yes.
And certainly we know that there are many residents who are connected to CMHA housing in one way or another who would benefit from these funds. So maybe just putting that out there as a follow-up item, as a request, as these funds are drawn down and utilized, a report out on how that's proceeding and how many households are served.
You want to add something, Assistant Director?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we're certainly amenable to the reporting requirement. We do have quarterly reports that are required by U.S. Treasury. We would be happy to share those.
Gotcha. To CEO Patterson and your team, how long do you think it'll take you to process your review, go back and double check where folks are, and to then apply the dollars across the ledgers?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, I'm reluctant to give you a specific time frame, but at least over the next 30 to 60 days,
Okay.
we'll dive into it, going through and then setting up the process and the structure to really be able to get out and start engaging. But first, dealing with the ones that we have in place first.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything? Councilwoman House Jones.
The chair, to the team here, good morning. Just a quick question, and thinking about, because we've had conversations around, as we know, the need for people to engage, and as rental assistance is basically over, we're really trying to partner with our residents to connect to opportunities so that we are not facing, this ever-going crisis on being unhoused because you do not have the resources. Do you all have any ideas or suggestions of potential partnerships you can have with the city of Cleveland so that we can work, in partnership to really try to connect our residents to opportunities, family-sustaining opportunities, but also thinking about the opportunities for community members where we know are not able to engage in the traditional job market for a variety of life circumstances? Do you all have any ideas of things that we may be able to work together, just to build our partnership together to really help community members understand we all have a role to play? And again, in this capitalist market, there are very few places, really no place that you can actually stay for free. Someone is paying for it, right? Regardless of what that economic status, and understanding we all have a role in contributing, to our daily life.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, yes, we definitely are up for that. I know we've had in the past and continue to have a good partnership with the Department of Aging. We work with the Department of Community Development. We also have worked out with Ohio Needs Jobs and trying to find ways to get opportunities for residents. But I think every partnership that we have could be enhanced, and I think every opportunity just is about us getting in rooms. And I like the opportunity, as we've spoken, to continue to work with you in your area to look at neighborhood organizations that may be able to help us partner with to establish a presence within some of the different communities that we represent. So I'm always willing and able to sit down and have those conversations and reach out to partners, even partners that serve certain segments of our residency that may have traditionally not necessarily had the attention.
Absolutely. So that's the thing. I know I have a to be determined. Well, we got a date coming up soon, and then through the chair with Ms. Greer, absolutely have a date coming up with you. But I absolutely want to make myself and my office available to you all to really think through with that community outreach strategies. So if we have a place based, like getting residents to come down, I think that it provides a prime opportunity to have some further strengthening community partners and engagements to really understand, to let residents know while we are partnering to ensure that you are housed, we want to keep you there, and these are the opportunities. We got to move with the willing, right? And showing people with the willing heart and spirit that these are opportunities to ensure that this public investment, that we can leverage it and that we do not waste it.
And Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, on that point, when we do these rental assistance clinics, we also often have other partners at those clinics. So while there are folks that are there that are trying to deal with their rent issues, if there are other things that we have available, other services, other programs, and things like that, we have other partners there to assist and make that communication as well. We did that a lot when we were working towards digital inclusion as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, a couple quick questions, Chair, to the team. And the first being, what is the notification process for residents that receive the backlog paid down?
So to the chair, to Councilman McCormick, we have a notification letter. It's like a reminder notice that says, dear ma'am, sir, you owe this amount, come to the office. In addition to the rental assistance we offer repayment agreements. So if they want to come in and say, hey, I can pay X amount per month till I get my balance down, we offer that. in addition to the rental assistance. We also send out notification via social media, and we started using our rave messaging system a lot more during COVID. So you get a phone call and reminder calls to say, hey, we're doing a clinic today at this time at this location.
Thank you. So, but for the folks that are, so if I'm a CMHA resident and my balance is going to be paid down, my back due is going to be paid down with this program, how will I know?
To the
Yeah.
chairman, to the councilman. Once approved, and we know the amount that you approved for, we do send out a letter
Okay.
that says, hey, Ms. Greer, you were approved for $1,200 from Cleveland Housing Network or from whichever entity provided the rental assistance. If they have a balance still, we would say what that is, and also if they want to do a repayment agreement on the remainder of that balance, they can do that as well. So they do receive a notification letter that they've been approved.
So what I would ask, because a lot of folks in just across the country, folks have a difficulty drawing a connection between what do these various federal law means and how they help me in my day-to-day life. And this is an example of where federal funding will help folks in their day-to-day life through the city of Cleveland. So Chair, I don't know, so the point is that in those letters, figuring out a way to articulate that this is a program through the city of Cleveland, it was paid through by, was this CARES Act?
No, it's Treasury. United
No, I
States
understand that, but what law?
ARPA.
No, this was the ARPA, America
ARPA.
Recovery.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so just saying, I don't know how you want to word it, but through the Biden-Harris administration's American Rescue Plan Act, through the city of Cleveland, like figuring out a way to word that. I don't know if we need an amendment for that, Chair. You want to do it?
Right, I agree. So Councilman Corbin is getting to, just like you mentioned, the letter says, well, CHN,
Yeah.
The funding. We want to make sure, just like we did with RIP medical debt, that there's, in that notice, that it states that these funds were made possible by the,
There it is.
there it is, all right? And so, partnership with City of Cleveland, Cleveland City Council,
Yep.
that these
You wanna make
funds
that
are, made available, all
Okay.
right? Yes.
All right, so Chair, I'll make an amendment to ordinance
369.
369, 2024, requiring, which it seems that the organization's already going to do, a notice to residents who benefit from this program, drafted in partnership with the city and city council, establishing that these dollars from partnership with the Biden-Harris administration, city of Cleveland, and Cleveland City Council. That's my amendment.
All right, there's a motion, there's been a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jones?
Our distinguished colleague, Mr. McCormack, and I wasn't clear on that, on his question. You answered some of the questions, Mrs. Greer, on when it is determined that the person who's in the rear, do you just automatically pay that? Or it sounded like they have a choice if they could pay in the rear. Could you explain how that works? Maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Greer.
Okay. So what I was saying is that at CMHA, we offer repayment agreements now. So if we didn't have rental assistance, if we didn't have any other programs, if a resident wanted to enter into a repayment agreement for any balance that they have, they can do so.
Yeah, at this point. But now with this money, this would take care of all that, in terms of their being in debt.
It depends on what a resident owes. They're only going to be qualified for a certain portion. It may cover everything they owe. There may be some instances where a resident does get approved for an amount, but they still may have a balance left.
So so it's percentage based upon I presume income? Is you doing it based on income guidelines? On how much they'll get and how much they won't get?
Through the chair to the council person. The rental assistance is limited by a number of months that the resident is past due. So in some cases, the residents will be more than 12 months past due, which it will exceed the amount that they can actually be helped with. So in that case, we can enter into a repayment agreement with them for the remaining balance.
So then how would this program help them in that case?
Through the chair to the council person, it would assist them in not having such a large burden of rent on their backlog. Every month, seeing that to such a high number, it can feel a little, disheartening to the household to see that month after month after month, to get some assistance and then enter into a repayment agreement that is more manageable to the household can help them work through their past due rent.
So you use partial of this money, Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Nolan to distribute. So it doesn't go to take care of or relieve their entire debt.
Yeah, through the chair, to the councilperson, as is available. Some families, it will take care of their whole debt because they are 12 months past due, and that's the amount that they owe, and we'll be able to help them. If the Treasury were to loosen their requirements and we could pay for even more of a family's past due rent, it's just that right now they only allow you to go back 12 months.
So this is the guidelines?
Yes.
I see.
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. See no further. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? All right. Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have another amendment for you, my friend.
All right. Councilman McCormick.
I'd like to offer an amendment to 369-2024 requiring, I think, quarterly report outs of the money spent down.
I think that's fine.
Is that okay with you, Chair?
I think I'm good with
Just
that.
requiring a quarterly report out of the spend down of the money.
Okay.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman?
All right. Yes, Councilman.
Just a request of information. I would like to have an idea of just how big CMHA is in the city of Cleveland. Do we have a breakdown on the numbers of each ward, how many CMHA residents are in those wards? I know I've requested in the past. Thank you, Mr. Patterson, for being so professional and getting that information to me. For my neighborhood, I know that you probably have new folks that moved in the community, so I'd like to have that information too.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, that's no problem. And we could provide that for all council if
That would be great. Yeah, so we can just get a listing of all of your CMHO properties by ward, and also, also the housing choice voucher program households per ward as well.
That
All
would
right?
be nice.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 369-2024 as amended stands approved. All right. Oh, no. Wait. Yes, we have an actual law department minute. I take my approval back. All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, I'd like to offer a third amendment.
Yes, Councilman McCormick.
Alrighty, the amendment is in section 1, it amended section 3, line 3, strike various entities and in line 5 at the end, insert RQS 8006 RL 202443.
You have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes have it. Again, ordinance number 369-2024 as amended officially stands approved. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Councilman.
Thank you so much for your time.